Hello and welcome. My guest today is Normie Sobel. Norm has been a supervisor or was a supervisor at Camp New Moon in Toronto, Canada for many years. His career spans teaching and real estate. He has fundraised for people with AIDS. He has led seminars and workshops in the Landmark Forum, and he is the founder of coaching groups for transformational leaders. That's where I've gotten to know Norm Sobel mostly over the past 2.5 years. Norm, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking. Thank you for being my first guest, inaugural guest for this
My
series,
pleasure. My pleasure.
and today we're going to. I'm really excited to do this. We're going to talk about under the umbrella of aging. That's our leading topic,
Hmm.
and you suggested, or you've lost the idea of loss is very present for you these days. And I wanted to hear from you about that, first of all. And then I think we're going to get into hopefully, into some really interesting ways to make some important distinctions and play with the concept and hopefully lead to
Sure.
greater power around that. So, talk to me about loss in the context of aging and what it means for you.
Well, I just turned 70 years of age, and just in the past year, I think I've lost 7 or 8 people from my life, very significant people in my life. My former partner in life, my former life partner, um, a very close friend and realtor, a very close camp friend. Uh, the numbers go on, and I think um, you know what comes with age is loss. I think it's a natural process. I think sadly it's not something we're prepared for. Um, and for me, Nico, it's been a lot of profound loss this last year, and sometimes I ask myself, how am I getting through it? Because it's hard.
And can we talk about the emotions? I'm grief, sadness. Am I next? Who's next? The feeling of a friendship or a love that you used to have that you no longer have. What other kinds of impact do you experience?
I think there's a bit of for me, there's been like some anger at God. I consider myself a spiritual person. I do believe in a higher power, and like, why did this happen? Why these people? And in some situations, it was tragic or it was very sudden, and it was someone you never in a million years thought you were going to lose at this stage in life. At their age, healthy, fit, um, or a tragic accident. Um, so I think there's anger, a sense of unfairness, a sense of helplessness. Like helplessness, and then with my former partner, he was blind and really challenged emotionally and mentally, and he was approved for MAID, which is medical assistance in dying, and he'd been approved in January and actually went through the process of getting all his affairs in order, having me help him, get rid of furniture and really clear out his apartment, get everything in order. And for me, it was gut wrenching. It was something I'd never experienced. I understood it from his point of view. It took me a little while to get my head around it. He was religious and believed he was going to a better place. And I feel for him, it was the right thing. But for me, going through that process it was very hard. It was very emotional. It was, someone who'd been in my life for 47 years. And even though we were in a relationship as like a married couple in our 20s and 30s, but remained very close friends like brothers. And it was a loss. And I think the people left behind, like myself, it's like, how do we deal with this? It's very unknown, especially MAID is unknown. But I think another thing that's difficult is when you have people in your life that are healthy and youthful, and you never in a million years thought you wouldn't have the next 10 or 20 years with them, and they pass suddenly. I think, it's something it's like you're prepared for it because you're told you're a senior and that you're going to lose people. But on the same token, you just don't expect it. There's certain people you're never expected of. It's like
Norm, can I just invite you, just if you're willing to play along here, can you say I didn't expect it?
yeah, That's good. I didn't expect it. Like, I did expect my mother to pass. My mother, when she passed, was 100. She was in a nursing home from age 95 on. I was prepared. I expected that, as much as it was still sad when my mother passed, because we were very close. You know, your mother is your mother, but it was something I was prepared for. And with several of the other losses I've had in this last year, none of which I was prepared for or expected.
So
And
I'm gonna
my age,
this is a very serious topic, and when I think about the people who matter to me in life and the idea that they will die, it just, even though it hasn't happened yet, it's all theoretical. It's very, very painful.
yes,
And the contradiction, or the apparent contradiction, is we know people are going to die. We know we are going to die. So objectively speaking, we know that at least our bodies, what happens to our soul or our spirit, if you have some belief around that, that's a different story. But we know our body as it exists will die. We know their bodies as it exists will die. And yet, like, so like you said, your mom, you were able to prepare for it. What why are we not prepared when we know that everything that's alive is going to die?
I think because on some level, you think it's not going to happen to you. You would not believe the number of people I speak to that have not got a will or do not have a power of attorney, a medical and a financial power of attorney, uh, with others in their life that they love and trust, because we all think we're invincible. It's not going to happen to me. And it's going to happen. We are going to die. I don't know many people that like the idea of that they're going to die. We all want to live. We love to live on forever, and we're not going to. And I think for me, hitting 70 was like, wow, how did this happen? How did I get here? What do I have to look forward to? What is my future? You know, I personally, I'm healthy, I'm fit, but I have spinal stenosis and osteoarthritis. So I have some lower back issues and mobility issues and some chronic pain. And, you know, if you talk to me in my 20s, 30s, or 40s, I wouldn't have even given it a thought. You know, it's just like not even on the screen. And it suddenly catches up with you. So I think it's, what's the word I want to say? It takes you by surprise, even though you would think you shouldn't be surprised. But we do. We just never think it's going to happen to us. I know Nico, my brother, sells, he works for a company called Combined Insurance. And there is a plan that protects you, particularly be useful for real estate agents if because we're out in the ice and snow and we don't have any disability insurance, so to speak. And it's the kind of insurance that would protect you if you had an accident, if you're showing a house and you fell and you broke a leg and you're off for a few months. That insurance totally protects you. And yet he's told me, of all the real estate agents he's dealt with, and I think he's been doing the business 6-7 years, I'm the only one that took this insurance.
Incredible.
So I think a lot of people don't think it's going to happen to them. I had a wonderful real estate friend. It was just in the news, and she died very tragically and suddenly in a freak car accident. And this was a successful, fit, accomplished woman with years to live, and you've saved up, you work hard, you've got your properties and your pension and whatever, and then you're gone. What's it all for?
And I'd like to also bring some of the work we do in our group work to here. And a lot of our group work is taking a situation, a feeling of loss of power, a feeling of powerlessness, a feeling of why is this happening to me, a feeling of what am I going to do, of overwhelm, and transforming that into a feeling of power, of being cause, of having of possibility, of opportunity. Does anything come to mind? Now, you've been thinking about this for a long time, for many months. We've had many conversations around this.
Yeah,
What have you found in terms of restoring power?
One of the mantras of the Landmark Forum, and probably heard it in other disciplines, is this is it. This is it. Norman, you're 70.
So
choose 70, accept 70. Norman, you've got, spinal stenosis, osteoarthritis. This is it. And it's a matter of, with what you've got, who are you going to be in the matter of what you've got? How are you going to live your life in the face of it? Are you going to sit down under the covers and give up? Or are you going to, create some powerful possibility to move yourself forward? And the thing I think that's most important about all of this is, for me, definitely been no hero in the matter of loss or physical challenges or aging. It's, there are definitely times I'm under the
Yeah.
covers and I don't want to, and I, hate it and it's awful. But it's like there's a choice. I have a choice in the matter. And it's like I choose life, and I choose life, living my life fully. And that's the context of my life.
And I remember talking to you earlier this year in some of the situations you just mentioned. You went from the only thing you talk about is the grief, the sadness you had around some of the situations you're talking about, and then almost something switched. Do you remember what flipped that switch for you?
I would say it's acceptance. It's just, I think it's allowing, not I think, I've allowed myself to grieve. I've allowed myself to express my anger, my upset, my disappointment. I haven't tried to be a particular way about it. Um, Grief and loss and, uh, even loss of physical ability and the whole aging process, it is a part of life, but it's a matter of who are you going to be in the face of that. And I think to deny yourself accepting your feelings is wrong. So I've allowed myself to feel what I felt. And I've certainly used my network of support, my friends, my family, my coworkers, to share what's been going on with me and to get their love and support and their listening. And in accepting it and embracing it and allowing it to be the way it is, it's given me a freedom to move on. So I haven't made myself wrong for feeling what I'm feeling, for being depressed, discouraged, or angered. I've allowed that to be. But I think in allowing yourself to go through the process, not make yourself wrong, not judge yourself, not try to be a hero about it or a victim about it, just to really let it be, to let it rip, so to speak. I think that's what I did. To be honest, when Wayne had chosen May, this was January, and he passed in July, and I was very profoundly involved with his passing. I went through some real gut-wrenching times. I mean, nightmares at night, and just really sad and grief-struck, and not being able to imagine life without him. But I didn't fight those feelings. I let them be. I think that's important, to not fight what's there. I didn't try to be the hero. I didn't try to be the martyr. I just let it be. I let it rip.
When you say this is it, I know this is not what you mean, but I part of me he- interprets that as, okay, so and so's dead. I'm gonna, that's it. I'm gonna almost like denying it, ignoring its impact. That's not what you mean at all, is it? When you say
No,
this is
no.
it?
When I say this is it, I'm saying embracing it the way it is. So there's an expression they use at Landmark Education called "what's so." So what so is Wayne uh, chose made, and Wayne passed in July 8th of this year, and uh, he was my partner and friend for 47 years of my life. That's what's so, and this is it, is like embracing it the way it is. I mean, I can't bring Wayne back. I can't, um, some of the, I believe in miracles and whatever, but I need to embrace my physical challenges, and the what so is, it is the way it is currently. So yeah, I think it's a matter of embracing and accepting life rather than trying to deny it. Yeah, denial. Like, for me to say to you, oh, Nicholas, come on over in an hour and we're going to go for a power walk. Well, I'm not able to do that. I have degenerative discs, and probably to go for a walk of just even a few minutes, I'll need to use my walker. So it would be a little bit crazy for me to say, oh, no, no, sure, I'm going to walk. Like, so I have what I have, and I haven't got what I haven't got. And sadly, Wayne has passed on. I miss Wayne. I don't like it. There's nothing I can do to bring him back. So either I'm going to wallow in the sadness of it forever, or I'm going to move on. And he wanted me to have a great life. Like, he definitely uh, did not want me to mourn and grieve for him. And, we talked about it, and we talked about little ways that I would, feel his presence or know that he was there. And yeah, so this is about accepting life and what you've got in your life the way it is, rather than denying it, embracing it.
And that
And
includes the grief and the sadness and the anger and whatever other emotions it means.
to deny yourself sadness and grief and feeling like a victim or feeling like, why me? I think to deny yourself like that is not fair and doing yourself a disservice. You know, it's what it is to be a human being.
And do
I'm
you
very suspect, Nico, of someone who walks around and is like, oh yeah. I remember I used to, I was in real estate. I've been in real estate 43 years. And I could tell you joyous stories of wonderful, wonderful, encounters with clients. And then I could tell you stories that really broke my heart. There's lots and lots of rejection and disappointment, and people you thought were going to be loyal to you that aren't loyal to you. And if I told you some of the agents I have met over the years, I said, oh, no, I got over it in a minute. It didn't bother me. No, it happened a few times. But, I say, no, not true. I don't, if you're really being straight about it, to be a real estate agent takes something. And there's a lot of rejection in the business. There's rejection. I don't know anybody who hasn't had people they never in a million years thought would have gone elsewhere and would have stuck to them that didn't. The feeling of betrayal or disloyalty. It is something present if you're a realtor.
and how does that relate to the death of a loved one?
I think the way it relates is that some of our loved ones go before us. And some of them that go before us are ones we never thought would go before us. Some of the people that I've recently lost are people I thought would be with me in my old age for the next 10 or 20 years, right up until. So I think it's a sense of, the similarity is the sense of unfairness. Like, why me? How could that happen to me? It's not fair. I think that's the similarity, the unfairness of it and the shock of it. The shock of a client who had called you to put their property up for sale with you and calls you the next day and says, I've changed my mind. I'm going with so-and-so. That's like a shock. And to have a friend die in a tragic car accident that you just spoke to a few days ago and we're getting together for dinner, and not in a freak accident, and somebody who's in the healthiest vibe, just in a fabulous place in their life, that's a shock. That's unfair. And I think if you're a spiritual being, which I consider myself, I definitely go into times where I feel disappointed in or betrayed by God. Like, how could you let that happen? Why? It's a conundrum for me sometimes.
So I want to follow up on a bunch of stuff you said. First of all, I want to focus on the word of loss. We keep talking about the word loss, and I'm going to say I'm going to play with this a little bit. I don't like the word loss because to me, the word loss has a connotation that, oh, I've lost it, but I might find it again, or it might turn up. And I know we tend to use loss as a euphemism for death or death of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if part of the mental confusion we have around death, or not confusion, but yeah, the call it negative emotion we have around death is that we don't want to admit the reality that it's not a loss. It's not something I had. I didn't have this person, and I lost them, and I might find it again. No, their body is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the question, I'm curious to have, do you have any thoughts on using the word loss? Is using the word loss, is that helping or hurting us? And I would say it might be hurting us.
It's a good question, Nico. I mean, for me, when I see loss, I think of yeah, I feel like a part or a piece of me um, uh, is gone. It's like
But
if
that you might find it back, that it might come back.
no, for me no,
Like
it's
it's dead. It's been severed. It's not
that's right,
lost.
that's
It's
right. Well, it's a good question. I'm not sure how I would
yeah.
answer that, Nico. I
Okay.
think
We
you know,
don't have to have all. We don't have to have all the answers.
yeah, I'm clear. I don't. My father had a massive stroke in the '80s, and a year after his stroke, he had to have a leg amputated. So it was a loss of a leg. It was a loss. The leg was not going to be replaced. And I know, for him, it was, for all of us, it was a sadness that had to happen. So I think when you lose someone you love, they're dead. And as, on the physical plane, as far as we know, they're gone. They're lost to us. And, but there's the experience of, the sadness, the grief, maybe the anger, the denial, the finality of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I'm not sure how else to answer it. But for me, I find loss a very effective word.
you like the word loss?
Yeah, I do. I think,
Yeah.
when I look at Wayne passing or my friend Lillian passing, this is a loss. Just like losing out on the experience of spending more time with them and sharing with them and doing things with them and participating in life with them and in talking with them on the physical plane.
And again, what's happening in my mind now is this is the idea that loss has a lot more story and, um, for me, connotations. Death has huge connotations, but at least for some reason, for me, and I understand different people's minds work in different ways and we process things differently. But for me, and this is also, I got to say, this is for me quite theoretical, because I there are very few people I know who have died, very even fewer people who were close to me who have died. So I don't have anywhere near the same experience that you have,
Yeah, this is
and I'm okay with that.
something that I say, Nico. Like for me, the idea of aging, death, and dying. I took my first course in death and dying first year university, and I was so glad that I did. I think it's something that our youth, dealing with the elderly, dealing with aging, dealing with loss, dealing with the physical challenges that come as you age. I think it's important that our youth are aware of that, because when you're 20, 30, 40, even your early 50s, you haven't experienced a lot of loss, and maybe most people haven't, and it can hit you like, whoa.
Well,
Like for me this past year, it's been like unbelievable.
there's a huge cultural, I think, in the society I grew up in, a huge denial around the idea of death. We don't talk about it. The medical system exists like it doesn't happen. We take, like you mentioned, it's you were not, you've even used these words, you weren't prepared for it. It was a surprise. You think, well, gosh darn it, if there's anything that's predictable in life, it's death. So how could we be surprised? We could be surprised by the timing, but we can't be surprised that it happened. I'm speaking
I think
objectively. I know the
a lot of
emotional
people are
reality
in
is
denial, and I think it's also married couples with children that don't have
don't.
wills,
Yeah.
um,
Like,
um, people that have no insurance plan or
yeah,
disability plan, because it's never going to happen to me.
right.
I can tell you, my own sister, who's my best friend in the world, was in a horrific car accident 7 years ago that left her quadriplegic. And thank God she was driving my car and we had insurance plan, because if there wasn't insurance in place, it would have been a real disaster. So, and if you had said to me years ago, someone you love, your sister's going to have a horrific accident that's going to, that's like a 1 in a million, but it happens,
Of course, it happens.
and
Yeah.
we're not prepared, and we never think it's going to be me.
I want to switch gears for a sec. And one thing I'm really noticing in this conversation is you're naming names. You're giving a lot of personal information, personal details about your family, your friends, and that's, as a guy, I consider myself more discreet and private. What is it about you that gives you that willingness to name names and be?
I think I've named a few. I try to be as discreet as I can.
but you're comfortable. I guess I notice a
Yeah.
comfort. You're naming your friends. You're talking about your family members, your brother, your sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So your
really.
question is, you know, I think what it is, Nico, is if I can provide for others some sense of peace or wisdom or ability to deal with things as they come in life, because there could be someone watching this right now that can't even relate. Like you've said to yourself, sorry, you haven't experienced much of this. You're, a young man, you become a father, you know, well, I know how old you are. You look like you're about 40, but it's going to happen.
Yeah,
And sadly, it could be tomorrow
I could. Yeah,
or it could be next
yeah.
week. And none of us think it's going to be me. None of us. And I think we need to be educated and prepared and open to that life can change on a dime.
What do you think? And I think I just to close the loop on this thread here. I think that perhaps part of the reason you do, I'm going to call, name names, you give first names and make it so personal, is you're giving the proof that this is not a theory. This is not theory. You're not in the realm
No,
of theory and abstraction. You're talking about
no.
real people in your life who are
I'm
close to you.
talking about me. I'm
Yeah.
talking about me as someone who was, for example, an athlete. I was a competitive swimmer, a runner, a bowler, volleyball, power walker, and as I hit early 50s, I had to give up all these things. And never in a million years would I have thought I'd need to use a cane or a walker or be dependent from time to time on my partner. Also, just in the last year, I've lost about 8 or 9 people very near and dear to me. I'm talking not just like someone, passing fancy in the street. I'm talking about people that were, very much in my life, people that I loved and cared about, cherished, honored, and most of whom never in a million years thought would not be here today on a physical plane.
So what would help you? You mentioned the word prepared. What would help you in particular? What do you think would have helped you? And what do you keep it? Yeah. What do you think might have helped you or could have helped you to
Well, what I think
prepare?
did help me, Nico,
Yeah.
is as a gay man, I lost some of my first friends in my 30s. And when you're in your 30s, you certainly aren't expecting to lose people.
Yeah.
And I lost a lot of people to AIDS, and I was around a lot of, death and dying. So I think because it happened at an early age and I sort of was thrown into it and lost some, really close people, I guess I learned, I developed a way of being, I developed coping skills. So I think that helped a lot. I think that for our youth to have courses in schools, high school courses, university courses, where kids can be made aware and can be trained and given coping skills. Um, that I'm grateful for. I think I've got a wealth of coping skills that I've developed over the years through the loss of friends to AIDS, through having done programs like Landmark Education or studied people like Louise Hay or Esther Hicks. I've thrown myself into many situations that have given me guidance and wisdom to deal with what life throws at you. And life does throw things at you. And sadly, some of these things aren't happy things. They can be tragic and hard to deal with.
And if I'm taking away a few things though from this conversation, one is accept the reality of the death, accept the reality of whatever emotion you're feeling. And accept doesn't mean dwell in it and hide under the covers for a long time. Hide under the covers for a few days or a few weeks. But
Mm-hmm.
also, then I guess part three would be well, these are the 5 stages. What's her name? Is it Rainer Maria Rilke who talks about the
Um,
five
um,
stages of grieving? Or
well,
there's
there's
a natural progression.
I don't know the order, but there's grief, there's denial, there's bargaining, there's acceptance, there's anger. I don't know if I've missed some of the others.
Yeah, I don't know. Forgiveness might be in there. I don't know if, but
Yeah,
so you can look that up. But I guess it's
Elizabeth.
eventually
I think it's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote a book on it.
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Okay, uh, thank you. And But there's an eventually, I guess, we're not saying, and I'm certainly not, I don't think you are either, meaning to suggest, oh, accept the reality, be like a emotionless person. That's an alternative too. But we're not saying be emotionless and just accept the physical reality of the death. We're talking about not because there are people who get devastated and they like their lives fall apart, not just for a few days or a few weeks, but their lives completely fall apart.
Mhm.
And from what I've heard, also, people will commit suicide after the death of a loved one.
Mhm.
Um, I'm also wondering, some other thing that came up while you were talking is the idea of like almost like an attachment, like someone we've known for a long time or someone we knew a long time ago. That person, some people would say, and to an extent I believe this, well, that person actually died many years ago. Their soul, the person you knew died many years ago. Their body continued functioning on this planet, but actually the soul and certainly the connection you had, that's been over for months or years or decades in some cases. Do you have any thoughts on that view?
So you're talking about someone who may be in a coma,
No, I'm talking about someone who
who left the plane physically,
who
and
seems to be a functioning human being, but is already not the person you knew. Whether it's through a change of behavior, a change of attitude, a seeming kind of insanity. I'm not talking about Alzheimer's or that type of
yeah, oh, I see.
degeneration,
Well, I
but a
think
person who seems a little bit off the rocker because actually something about the person you knew 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago is already gone. They're still living on the planet. They still drive cars. They still do their thing, but they're actually gone. Like almost like their soul
I
checked
think
out.
that's the process of life. I think there's going to be some people that come into your life and leave your life. There's going to be some people that come into your life, leave your life, come back to your life. There's going to be some people that never come into your life. And there can be people like that were once significant or important in your life, and you went your separate ways. And, you know, if you think about a childhood friend that you played with in the schoolyard, and you run into them 40, 50 years later. I remember I swam on the swim team with a fellow, and it was very playful, and we were just like lots of fun and whatever. And I ran into him 40, 50 years later, and he was an educator, and he was about as straight and as stick-like as I could ever imagine. And I wanted to say, can you come on out and play? Like, it was just like absolutely not the same person I'd known. And that's life, part of life.
That's what I agree with that. And I'm wondering if therefore part of the grief and sadness and anger is that we're still attached. Is the issue attached? We're attached to a relationship that we had a long time ago, or a perception, or I have this memory of this, like you're saying, it's not someone we think of as being a certain way, and the reality, we don't. It's like we're out of step with the reality, because the person you described today, if they died, that's not the same person you knew 40 years ago. And yet we're attached to the experience we had 40 years ago.
I think you can experience the loss or the death of a relationship,
Yeah.
of a friend or a person or even a relative that was once very near and dear to you and in your life, and you've gone your separate ways, or there's nothing in common anymore. I think that's a loss too. That can be like a death.
I'm also now thinking if there are people who in the present, in like we're recording this on November 1st, 2022, there are people who will talk today about experiences they had in the past, and almost like they're stuck in the past. That's what I'm trying to say. The words came back. Being stuck in the past. And when you're stuck in the past and that past dies, that can also be very sad.
Well, in Landmark, they say the past is the past. And a lot of us are bringing the past into our future.
Yeah.
And what you want to do as best you can is put the past in the past, be complete with the past. You can't change the past. There's nothing you can do about the past. But you can invent a powerful new future, not based on past, but speaking a new possibility. One of the possibilities I speak is that I am power walking. Now, that may be pie in the sky. It may never happen. But I'm like, I'm committed to it. I'm going to do whatever I can do to power walk again and not need to use a cane and walker. Whether or not that will come to reality, I think that I can have the belief, the enthusiasm, whatever. When friends of mine first, when people got AIDS in the 80s, it was a death sentence. That was it. And now I've got people in my life that have been living with HIV for over 35, 40 years. And it's not a death sentence. It's now considered a chronic illness. So anything's possible. And I think if you focus on your past and continue to bring that past into your future, keep living your past in today's moment, there's not going to be a lot of freedom or joy. And we all do it. I mean, to sort of let go of the past, I don't claim it's an easy feat. And it keeps coming up to haunt you and haunt you and haunt you and haunt you. And it's useful to be masterful. It's useful for me. It's been useful for me to get masterful about losing people I love, because it continues to happen. And, I'm not going to suicide myself over it, like it's a toughie. But who are you going to be in the matter of it? And I'm going to continue to live my life. I do believe that the people that have passed on would want me to have a great life. I know my former partner, Wayne, absolutely wanted that for me. He didn't want me to sit around and moan and grieve for him and be upset. He wanted me to have a great life.
And as I'm hearing you say that, I'm thinking...
I told him that I would. He was concerned, and I said, no, I will have a great life. And I will never forget you, and I will always love you.
And I'm thinking now, in the calm, safe, happy place that I'm in, it's much easier to do from this place than, say, after the immediate death of a loved one. But we can say, even though I will experience the death of a loved one, I can still serve. I can still offer the gifts that I have to offer. I can still be a powerful human being. I can still be joyful. I can still... like, even though a person close to us dies, it doesn't mean we have to die. We still have so much to give and to offer and to be.
Yes.
I think it would be very difficult to be in that space after the death of a loved one. So I'm thinking now, it's almost like preparing, back to that comment, I wasn't prepared for that you said early on, you weren't prepared for it.
We don't have a lot of things in our lives. We're trained in high school to, prepare for a career, and we learn our maths and our languages and whatever. I was, I speak French and Spanish, and I'm prepared to go to a French speaking or Spanish speaking place. I've been prepared for that in my schooling. I don't think we're prepared for loss or aging. There's nothing in school curriculum that I know of that deals with loss, death and dying, and aging.
I'd like to ask you then for a concrete tip, knowing that people around us will die. What can we do when we're in a good place to prepare?
Well, one of the things I could say, a lot of people have parents and grandparents, and relish them, spend time with them, let them know who they are for you. Listen to their stories. Sometimes you'll have an elderly person that tells your story over and over again. Let me promise you, when they're gone, you wish they were there with you to tell you that same story over and over again. So I'd say really celebrate the people in your life. Spend time with the people. Let them know who they are for you. That's one way to prepare yourself. Enjoy the moment, but be around and be with the people that you love and are important to you. That's important. And include those people in your life.
I'm also thinking of when you're with them, really be with them. Be fully.
Absolutely.
2 minutes of full presence is better than half an hour on your phone.
It's the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
So, it's almost like, and I'm as guilty as anyone else.
Yeah.
You go to lunch, you're with your parents, you're at a Christmas dinner or a Hanukkah celebration. And if you look around the table, half the table's like looking at their iPhones.
Yeah. One thing also that with my partner and I, we try to do is we're both very good at that. I think is we try basically follow that saying, never go to bed angry. If she's got something or I've got something, we try to clean it up as soon as possible.
I agree.
Before we try to clean it up immediately, or certainly before we go to bed.
Yeah, I think practicing forgiveness,
Mm.
you know, great communication with each other. And I would say if you're in a relationship or a situation that's causing you grief and you're, not being successful, you're having issues in it, then seek counseling or seek out people that, or a program or something that can be supportive of you in having a breakthrough in that relationship. You never do it alone, Nico. Never
Mm.
do it alone. You can't. It's impossible.
Mm. Is that what you found?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And did you have good support?
Absolutely. I've always prided myself in having a great network of support and family and friends, different programs I've done, working with a therapist, the work of Landmark Education, Louise Hay, Esther Hicks,
Yeah.
in a program called the Hoffman Quadrinity Process. I've participated in some of Anthony Robbins' programs. I continue to put myself in places where I can learn and expand myself, meet like-minded people, and allow myself to be contributed to, because I don't have all the answers by far. And how I have been able to live my 70 years as best I can has been to set myself up to win rather than to lose.
For sure. Um, I think that's a beautiful way to end. But before we end, I want to ask if there's anything that you want to clarify or expand on.
I'd just like to thank you for this time. Great questions. And to say that, if someone said, "Oh, Norman, you're doing great compared, since everything," I'd say, "You know what, Nico? Sometimes this really sucks. This has really sucked." And to be able to say that, rather than, "Oh, no, I'm fine. I'll get over it. I'll be fine." No, I think it's important to really tell it how it is for you, to accept it, to express it, to call in the troops, to call in your network of support, and to know that you will get through it. You will get through it. And to feel what you're feeling, to let yourself grieve, to let yourself go through whatever emotions, to put yourself in places that nurture and empower you. And don't put yourself around people that just, that you don't feel supported by. Some people just don't know how to deal with people that have had loss. Don't be around those people. Discover who your real people are. And I'll tell you, with loss, you really find out who your real people are. That's for sure. That's it.
All right, Norm. Well, thank you for being my guest today.
My
And I
pleasure.
wish you a long and joyful life.
Thanks. I
I
appreciate
wish
it.
us both. I wish us both
Yeah.
many, many more.
And I'm
happy
clear. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Nico.
All right. Bye, Norm.
I'm standing in the possibility of health, well-being, and miracles with abundance out of this.
And I'm standing in the possibility of, I'm going to copy you. I'm going to stand in the health, well-being, and miracles and
Okay.
fucking A.
Okay. That's perfect.
Okay. Bye, Norm.
Bye for now.